Hey, what's poppin', Acolytes? It's me, MT, and welcome back to the Heavy Spoiler Show, y'all. This is gonna be a breakdown of episode 6 of The Acolyte. And I don't know about you, but I am ready to dive into this thing, so let's just get into it. Alright, so episode 6 of The Acolyte, titled Teach Corrupt, picks up where the last episode left off, with the twins, Osha and Mae, pulling a parent trap and ending up with each other's masters. And after being taken to the mysterious island on an unknown planet that we briefly got a look at during the very end of the first episode, Osha wakes up and finds herself very much alive to her surprise, as Osha literally just saw this mysterious stranger eliminate a whole squad of Jedi, breaking neckies and stabbing jeckies and whatnot. So Osha's like, this killer psycho just patched up my wounds? What's the big idea here? Only for Osha to immediately see Qimir's very big idea as he emerges naked from his bath. And if you're asking, MT, how do you know that Qimir has a very big idea? I saw, okay? I saw. We go to the same YMCA, and the locker room is kind of a free-flowing area, if you know what I mean. But while Osha is stalking Qimir, she does notice that Mans has got a rather large scar on his back. A scar that is implied later to have been from someone who threw Qimir away in the past, with that past someone likely being Qimir's former master. And that past betrayal might be a major fuel for Qimir's main motivation, acquiring the power of two, with those words harkening back to the motto of Anasea's coven, the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. And Justin Timberlake recently learned the power of one too many, a decision that would inevitably ruin the world tour. And what will the world do without Justin Timberlake's world tour? But anyways, all Qimir really wants is an acolyte to help him become strong enough to fight for their right to practice the dark side of the Force in however way they want. Because while Qimir is powerful on his own, it seems like something in Qimir's past training has caused him to truly value power in numbers. And that's why I truly believe that Qimir's past master could possibly end up being Osha and Mae's mother, Coral, with Coral giving him that scar as a result of her developing an extremely rough training style as a result of the loss of her coven 16 years ago. In episode 3, we do see Coral push her wife to be more rough on Osha and Mae in order to make them stronger. So maybe she became extremely abusive towards Qimir before casting him away because he disappointed her in some way. But that's just my theory. Like, I honestly believe that Qimir could end up being Coral's son in some way, but who knows about that because this dude is apparently a lot older than we think. But more on that later. However, others on the internet have hypothesized that Qimir's former master could possibly be Master Vernestra herself, as that mark on his back appears that it could have been from her unique light whip saber. And while that personally is a super fun possibility to think about, I personally do not think this is the case because training a Jedi Padawan in such a way is very much not a Jedi thing to do, as Jedi are called to protect life in any way that they can. And nothing in Vernestra's life seems to imply that she would voluntarily inflict scars on a Padawan just to make them stronger. Like, she's never really displayed any dark-sided tendencies in the past. But I could definitely see why people are saying this because Qimir expresses deep familiarity with Jedi fighting stances, even correcting Osha's form when she grabs his lightsaber when he was swimming, before telling her that he used to be a Jedi a long time ago. A really long time ago, according to Qimir himself, which definitely lends to the theory I made in an earlier breakdown of Qimir potentially being revealed as the Sith Master Darth Plagueis, as we would learn in Revenge of the Sith that Plagueis had discovered a way to cheat death, and would eventually teach that method to his apprentice Darth Sidious, a Sith Lord that would eventually use the dark side life force transfer technique to preserve his own life and a new clone body, following the destruction of his old body by the ungrateful asthmatic asshole Darth Vader. So since life force transferring seems to be the key Palpatine used to preserve his life in the future, if Qimir is indeed Darth Plagueis, then we could be looking at a scenario where Darth Plagueis learned how to extend his own life by sending his life force into the bodies of other people, with Qimir's body possibly belonging to someone else completely before he transferred his mind into theirs. That would sort of tie into Qimir's method of blending in, just like we saw Qimir do when we met him for the first time when he was wearing the clothes of the former apothecary guy before taking his job. That could have been the show teasing a potential ability of Qimir's to shove his life force into other people's bodies. And such an outcome would also explain why Qimir Qimir was so intent on getting himself a powerful Acolyte, as that Acolyte could potentially become a strong replacement body later on should he get tired of the body that he's in. However, while Qimir being the Sith Darth Plagueis is a strong possibility, like I mentioned in last week's breakdown, Qimir is not confirmed to be a Sith Lord at all, with Qimir merely stating that some, like the Jedi, might call someone like him a Sith, likely as a way to underscore the Jedi Order's fearful need to label anything scary to them as the devil. However, because last week's episode ended with Kylo Ren's theme playing as Qimir healed Osha's wounds, there's a good chance that Qimir could actually be associated with the Knights of Ren Force cult, something that would make loads of sense considering how Kymir's helmet looks a lot like the helmets that the Knights of Ren wore in The Rise of Skywalker. But not only this, but Kymir's motivations are strongly associated with those of the Knights of Ren as well, as we would learn in the canon Star Wars comic Crimson Reign number 4 that the Knights of Ren are a cult that also have a deep desire to live in a galaxy where they don't have to hide on backwater planets from the more dominant Force cults in the galaxy that don't want them to exist. And for the Knights of Ren, it's not just the Jedi that they want freedom from, but also the Sith, with that very comic issue showing the Knights of Ren attacking Darth Vader's castle on Mustafar in a bid to destroy the Sith once and for all. This issue also goes on to show how the Knights of Ren also share Mother Anastasia and Kymir's value in the power of many, as the Knights of Ren would routinely pool their dark emotion-fueled Force powers together to boost their overall strength, just like we would see them do here when they use the power of many to open up a waterfall of lava on Mustafar, as well as here when the Knights work together to win a Force tug-of-war with Darth Vader himself. So it also seems very likely that Qimir could actually end up being the founder of the Knights of Ren, or at the very least the cult's last surviving member, with his obsession to have an Acolyte simply being his way of elevating himself to the level of leader of the Knights of Ren, rather than being just some guy on his own. And we could have seen the beginnings of Qimir getting exactly what he wants when Osha accepts Kymir's invitation to try his Cortosis helmet on for size, because throughout their entire time together on this mysterious planet, Qimir has been purposely trying to get Osha to embrace her inner power, a power that Osha doesn't believe that she has a connection to anymore. But Qimir ensures Osha that despite her failure to become a Jedi and her lack of training, she has a great power inside of her that she could just unleash if she embraced the emotion of passion and anger inside, a passion that the Jedi instructed her to bury and run away from. Qimir sees how much she loves other people and deeply respects that, and he uses that to tempt her to the dark side by reminding her that her love for the Jedi will always be one-sided, as a Jedi is not supposed to reciprocate that kind of love. But little does Osha know, her Master Sol is just as loving as she is. He's just better at hiding it. Qimir is baiting Osha to the dark side by trying to convince her that all she is her anger and her pain, and that her destiny could never actually align with the Jedi. And Qimir purposely gets Osha angrier and angrier so that she ignites his saber herself in rage to prove his point. And after going through her first lesson in Darkside 101 from her new Professor Qimir, it seems like Osha is willing to throw Kymir's helmet on her head in an attempt to discover more about her own dark side. And if Osha actually does end up embracing the dark side and becoming Kymir's new Acolyte, this helmet definitely feels purposely designed for that role, as Qimir would tell Osha that it was purposely designed after the blinding helmets that Jedi Padawans use to train their affinity in the Force. So her accepting that role and helmet would symbolically make Osha a dark Padawan of sorts. And this helmet very much ties into the concept of eyes being deceiving that Sol was trying to teach the younglings when we first met him in episode 1. So even though Qimir seems to have a great distaste for Sol in general, there are similarities to their teaching styles. One detail that I notice is that, much like Mother Anastasia's coven, Qimir has chosen to live within the insides of a cave that could possibly end up being made of Cortosis itself. And I only say this because towards the end of the episode, when Osha is touching Kymir's helmet to analyze it, she looks at the cracked walls of Kymir's cave as well, possibly the show's way of showing a connection between the helmet and the cave. And much like I hypothesized in my breakdown of episode 5, on top of Cortosis' ability to absorb heat and deactivate lightsabers, Cortosis can also block any outside Force influence, which is why Kymir's helmet protecting him against any Jedi mind-reading tricks. This being the case, if this cave is actually made of Cortosis metal, Qimir choosing to hide out inside of a Cortosis cave to evade detection from the Jedi would make a lot of sense. And hey, I don't mean to spread rumors, but word on the street is your ass likes wearing shirts. Well, good news for you, we've got a new Star Wars themed shirt over on our website that says Sith happens. And no one knows that Sith happens more than Jackie and Yord. So check that new shirt out and maybe even consider buying one or some for yourself or somebody that you love, because doing so really helps out the channel a whole lot. And moving on over to the Mae and Sol portion of the episode, the two head back to the Jedi Poland 717 transport ship and take off from the planet Kofar. Sol tries to make contact with the Jedi, but their communications seem to be all janky and broken. However, Sol's message of the team's massive losses on Kofar seems to have gotten through though, with that message eventually getting to the green ears of Master Vernestra. And before Mae could sneak up on Sol and murder him to take the ship for herself, Sol tells her to take the wheel while he attempts to boost the comm signal by resetting the transceiver. And during that trip to the transceiver, however, we see Sol lose his cool a little bit when he tears up and slams his hand in frustration at the loss of his comrades on Kofar, especially his Padawan Jackie. Actor Lee Jung-jae's performance here is absolutely incredible in my opinion, because you can truly see how much he's struggling to keep his inner sadness and rage within him in check, as these are qualities unfitting of a Jedi. And I feel like this moment calls back to two moments earlier in the season, with the first one happening back in episode 1 when Vernestra is surprised to see Sol display significant attachment towards his former Padawan Osha, when she very much expected him to handle that situation in a much more level-headed manner. And the other moment I feel like this reflects is when he and the Dark Stranger are facing off during the last episode, specifically when Qimir asks Sol what Sol has done with the darkness inside of him. Because to me, part of that statement was the dark side loving Qimir reading Sol, and the rest of the Jedi Order for that matter, like a freaking book, showing him that no matter how much Sol tries, he's going to need to confront his compassionate nature at some point, and the fear for the lives of his loved ones that comes with that compassionate nature. And we can clearly see during this emotional moment in this episode how Sol's attachment-fueled fear of losing Jackie, Yord, and the rest of his comrades has made him angry and frustrated at his situation. Emotions that the radically pious Jedi view as gateway drugs to the dark side. I mean, in the last episode, we did see Sol absolutely lose his shit and go full Mike Tyson on Qimir's ass when Qimir forced him to confront losses of deep attachments that he's always feared of losing deep inside. So, Sol eventually confronting that darker emotional side of him seems to be a major part of his character development this season. And after Sol leaves the room, of course, in comes series MVP Big Dick Basil onto the scene, being a good friend and charging Osha's Pip robot before continuing to track Mae's scent. Mae would eventually find Pip herself when she's ordered to fix a problem with the ship, and then resetting Pip to factory settings like a huge bitch. I'm so mad at her for doing that shit, because now Pip's got red lights instead of white ones, symbolically turning the nice sweet Pip into Mae's dark Pip. But not long after this, with a little help from the Tynan Basil, Master Sol gets hip to Mae's deception and would stun and bind her in order for him to finally express his dark secret to the girl that he thought was dead all these years. And it could end up being a secret that will cause Mae to transition from the dark side to the light side, as it seems like this episode was purposely meant to be the beginnings of both Osha and Mae experiencing a different point of view and maybe shifting to that different point of view over time. But what's particularly interesting about Sol in this episode is how Sol would straight up hang up on the Jedi's transmission to him, telling him that a rescue team of Jedi were on their way, possibly signaling Sol is about to go rogue from Vernestra's orders, likely in a bid to attempt to atone for his past mistakes on Brendok himself, because blindly listening to orders from the Jedi is what got him all of this guilt in the first place. And I, for one, am so excited for the inevitable flashback episode next week, because this truly is the big mystery of the season, and I gots to know what Jedi Master Squid Game did with Torben and the Matrix Lady. What did you do? But finally, let us talk about the third major element of the episode, Master Vernestra and her investigation into the slaughter on the planet Kofar. When we first catch up with Vernestra, she's having a chat with the Senator Chewant, a member of the Abenita race. Apparently, a Senator Rayancourt has made a motion to conduct an external review of the Jedi's activities, something that Vernestra is deeply fearful of, as she worries that Rayancourt's anti-Jedic rhetoric could cause the Jedi to lose political power down the road, and that's something that this woman simply cannot have, especially when she just sent an unsanctioned team of Jedi to get cooked by Qimir in the jungle, a sketchy action that would cause the Senate to reevaluate just how transparent the Jedi are with them, because that's definitely a very hypocritical and unethical unethical action for the Jedi to do. So, needless to say, Vernestra has got to handle the situation discreetly and personally. And before Vernestra and Mog leave with a rescue team to Kofar, Mog asks Vernestra if she's going to be okay with traveling in hyperspace, as he believes it tends to make her nauseous. However, Vernestra corrects him by saying that she doesn't get nauseous, but merely unsettled while being in hyperspace, pointing to Vernestra's ability to experience strong force visions of the future while moving at hyperspeeds, a power that was established in the 2021 novel The High Republic: Out of the Shadows. This power to see the future is likely why Vernestra sees all this secret Acolyte business as something that will inevitably tip the cosmic scales somehow, with that tipping of the scales likely somehow leading to the eventual birth of Anakin Skywalker, in my opinion, but only time will tell there. While investigating the scene on Kofar, Jedi Master Vernestra whips out her incredibly unique light whip for the first time in live-action Star Wars history. Just like the character of Vernestra herself, the light whip that she carries has been Star Wars canon for a while now, ever since Vernestra first ignited it in the pages of 2021's The High Republic: A Test of Courage. In exchange for the light whip's ability to be super flexible and capable of entangling anybody that it wants, light whips are unfortunately weaker than traditional lightsabers, mostly because of how thin they are. And the Jedi have actually been using light whips as far back as the ancient Sith Wars. The light whip actually made its first appearance all the way back in 1977 in the Star Wars comic Star Wars number 95. And after looking over the crime scene, Mog begins to assume that Master Sol himself could be responsible, with Mog exclaiming that Master Sol was the only person among them that could ever take on multiple Jedi like Qimir did, which makes me wonder just how strong Sol actually is when he truly lets loose. And I suspect that we shall definitely see more of what an emotionally unleashed Sol fights like by the end of the series. But thank you guys so much for watching this breakdown of episode 6 of The Acolyte. What do you guys think of the series so far? Let us know in the comment section down below. You guys can follow me at Mastertainment on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, wherever I am on the internet, but most importantly, follow Heavy Spoilers here on YouTube, and when you do, make sure you hit that notification bell to get notifications for every time we upload a video. And again, do not forget to hit up the Heavy Spoilers store so that you can pick up our new Sith Happened shirt. It'll look good on you, your mama, your daddy, your grandma, your grandpa, your great-great-grandfather who's dead, everybody. So be sure to pick up that shirt today because it really helps out the channel. But again, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. You guys are amazing, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.